lighting up the world.
I'm walking in high, dangerous grass to find this other border.
Beautiful. So I love how you're like. I feel like every time I speak with Steven, it's like Jurassic Park. He's like he's like David Attenborough meets Jurassic Park there.
You guys, this is Alegria, man. This is like the top looking down. If you look way down there, you can see the top of the yoga deck. But this is Alegria Village, baby. You guys, it's exploding. You guys, everything here is we've sold 7 lots in the last 2 weeks. Like, people from all over the world are extending. And we have we have a show on Netflix all about what we're doing coming out on July 10th with Zac Efron. So I'm ready for serious exposure.
So you mean we all have a hangout down there now?
Yeah, well, you've always had a hangout. We got several already.
Perfect.
And sorry I haven't been on a lot of the calls. Like, literally, this is what I do every day and push.
You've been doing what you need to do, Stephen. This is awesome. Welcome Dave, welcome Dean, welcome Nick. Khan is here. What a great mix. Susanna, welcome. Brigitte, welcome. Stanley. I am just trying to get this. I'm having a bit of a live streaming. Hold on, there we go.
He's right here. What are you doing, puppy?
Help with this, Natalia.
Everyone should mute. We've got noise in the background.
Sorry, guys. Give us 1 sec. We're just going to get this live stream going. So how is everyone today?
Good.
Good?
Yeah, I'm just realizing, Stephen, we met with in Venice with Yuval Apteker.
Who's that? Where are you?
Dave Quirk. I'm in Venice. Do you remember we met? We were talking about chocolate coins and cacao.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember.
I was just talking to Yuval a couple of minutes ago, actually.
Oh, really? Awesome. Yeah, I totally remember you. At that house on the beach.
I had a meeting yesterday with that guy right there in the truck.
Hey,
Good to see you again.
Is that Adam Russell?
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
We were walking around a field yesterday.
Making it happen. Bringing it in manifestation.
Hey, you guys, I'm going to hop off and hop right back on in a minute.
Sure. Cool. I'm just trying to get this live stream going, but we're just, let me just see if it might be the what. Oh, I know where it is. Give me 1 sec. Welcome, Charles. Welcome, Khan. Look at this great group of people. So happy to see everyone. Yeah, so let's just start with an intro to what's been going on, and I will go live when this is working on Facebook, and people can share it if you like. Actually, just give me 1 moment. It's working now. Just a sec, because.
Hey, ciao, Michel. Comment ça va?
Hello. Very good.
Yeah, Charles, you probably know a number of people on this call already.
Yeah, it feels like I'm arriving home. What have been missing in this place?
There we go. So let's get started. Well, so big welcome, everyone. For those, there's a bit of background noise. I think it's an iPhone there. I'm just going to mute anyone. Joseph, I'm going to mute you. You can unmute at any time if you guys want to talk. So yeah, welcome to the Up Game. This is the final of an 8-week journey that we've been on around food for health. And basically, the whole point of the Up Game is to apply collective intelligence around systems change, to ask the big questions of, like, over the next decade, what should we focus on that are the highest leverage places to focus for, like, the acupuncture spots of systems change. And it's all about showcasing community solutions for the Planetary Commons. So we started off with, I think it was 15 people that started the food game at seed stage, and then we go through this journey from seed to sprout to blossom to harvest is the current experiment we've been on. And at each step along that journey, we focus on evolving the solutions that have been coming forward. And so at the sprout stage, we formed the Unified Planet Food Alliance and the Unified Planet Food Technology Guild. And so today we're going to hear the synthesis of those like working groups, kind of those networked intelligence that have been synthesizing how do we, where can we focus our efforts and ultimately focus funding needs. Our hypothesis here is when you bring together, when you stack together solutions, systemic change solutions, such as Stephen Brooks's Ecoversity, such as what Dean and Mackenzie have been working on with Bex 360, what Khan is doing with Terramera, when you showcase all of the ecosystem of solutions and how they're interdependent with each other to accelerate system change, our hypothesis is it's easier for us to fundraise for ecosystems than it is for individual projects. And that's what we're trying to go out and prove. So with that said, Greg is going to kick us off, and then we're going to hear from Nikki and Paula. Rachel, I'm just going to mute your phone just because of the background noise. Then we're going to hear from Nikki and Paula with the social gastronomy movement. But Greg is just going to kick us off with a landscape intro to all things food and systems change and capital markets, just to try and give us like the holistic starting point. Over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Lucian. I'll take just a couple minutes. And hi, everybody. I'm so grateful we're all together, and there's a community like us in jungles and the urban jungle, right? Working together, and so satisfying. In some ways, I feel so zoomed out, like many of us, but also I found this last few months to be extraordinarily gratifying. I've met so many new friends, like Nikki as an example. I mean, I just adore you, and I wouldn't have met were it not for this kind of experience, right? And thanks, Lucian, for being you. We had a quick chat about this yesterday, and I put a link into the webinar series that I started yesterday based on the many years of work that I have been involved in learning from the leaders in the space. But then we're the leaders, all of us. But how do we then build on and cooperate with established frameworks and work and build on the libraries rather than trying to design a new library, but add new books in a metaphor? So then what we've been looking at for many years in our work is the broader context of the evolving. And I'm going to share my screen real quick. But first off, before I go there, the mini advertisement is sign up to the webinar series. There's 5 verticals that are in the first 5 episodes. And then we're taking a pause, and then we're going to do another 5 episodes with the various groups. We intend Future Capital, TTI, Upgame, Ethical Markets, and a number of other communities of practice that include thousands of people to work together in a different way and build a more comprehensive weaving. Not that we're going to become yet a new platform, because we have plenty of platforms, but to provide a more integrated approach to cooperative behavior in every bioregion. So we're looking at the verticals of California, Europe, Asia Pacific, and then indigenous, and then across Atlantic bridge for the intelligence that we know happening, to then bring that to California, and then for our laboratory here. So that's the shortest version of what's going on in the webinar series. And of course, in the future, I'm happy to elucidate on that. But also yesterday's webinar, and that you're all welcome to get, we'll be sending out the video for that, included my friend Hazel Henderson, and I'm going to share an item from her talk yesterday very briefly to give a little context, and then I'll be finished with my comments, if that's okay with you, Lucian. I'll do just this real quickly.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks.
Great. just doing this, and this is the slide that of her presentation that she shared. Once I get it to be more presentable, how do I get to this full screen? Okay, slideshow. There you go. Then this will be available, but this is the one thing I want us to see is with 7 billion people and perhaps 1,000 of us that are connected to the up game, that means there probably needs to be 1 million to 5 million up game kinds of games. And there's probably already 100,000 type of this game going on. And that's exciting because it needs to be diversified like a mycelial net in a fractal way that we've all seen in our visions together. And this is what we know is the natural way, the way life evolves, and we're on that journey as life evolving, right? So there's a larger context of what's going on as we move from a competitive civilization based on differentiation to a cooperative civilization where our differences add to the mosaic of our solutions to then work together and highlight the differences in the manner that we all know. And then looking at the context of what's emerging, we need new markets and new commons to be addressed by humanity. Telecom, desert greening, pollution control, uber energy, all these things are what Hazel's words are. Eco restoration on the bottom left is what we would call regenerative capitalism in my words. But then we have to look at the larger context of the entire 35,000 satellites and what's going on the planetary level, all these different dimensions, how we manage the commons. And if we look back at Eleanor Ostrom's work and her work of the future of the commons, it's fundamentally a way that we govern ourselves in this new cooperative fashion, which means fundamentally we need to rewire the very way we think and rethink about how we think together in a cooperative way, which requires a personal evolution of our own perspectives and an emotional maturity to work in a way that weaves all of us together. So I can go into details about that, but the short comment I'll say in closing is a good example that we talked about very briefly yesterday. This group TTI that you'll see, and many of us are familiar with TTI, they just announced an announcement that there'll be a partnership with World Economic Forum. And we know, Lucian, your deep experience and background and connections in World Economic Forum, wouldn't it be fun with all the people at TTI and all of the people at World Economic Forum and all of us, and then all of the people that are in Future Capital and all of the people at Ethical Markets to be aware of each other's activities in such a manner that it reduces redundancy, and cooperation is the means through which we reduce that redundancy and achieve greater results. In my way of saying it, I'll leave it with this: 1 + 1 + 1 = 333 in the new math. And that's the kind of thinking I want us all consider. And thank you very much. And of course, tune in for the webinar. You'll hear me speak plenty, and we'll go from there. And I'm always here for all of you whenever you need to talk more. And I have to leave soon for a wedding. So thank you
Thank you, Greg.
so much.
Thank you, Greg. And we're actually, for anyone that can stay on, immediately following this food collective harvest is our community impact blossom stage. And one of the things that has come out of the Community Impact Alliance is a new game on the Planetary Commons, and taking Eleanor's idea of theories of the commons and looking at how we can expand the Creative Commons to include more actually in the physical realm, and look at how we can connect community centers and regenerative farms, and very much aligned with Stephen Brooks, your 1001 hectares project. So lots of dots connecting, and really that's a good way to think of what we're trying to do with the Up Game, is to just really join up the puzzle pieces, to invite people that are holding pieces of the elephant that nobody has seen before of this system transformation, to invite them together to showcase where these puzzle pieces go, so that we can apply collective intelligence to be smarter and faster and more effective with how we drive forward systems change and new system experiments. So thank you for that, Greg. And one of the ways we've organized this is alliances. I think of them as like horizontal, like issue-based, horizontal, ecosystemic approaches. So there's the Food Alliance, there's the Sound Alliance, there's the Community Alliance, and every game we'll do will form a new alliance that then is part of this broader ecosystem. That's our initial thinking of something that is like the ancient future. And then from there, alliances can support and nurture and accelerate and incubate guilds. And guilds are essentially, think of them as an alliance is like the train station, and a guild is like the train going in a particular direction. And so there's the Food Technology Guild, there's the Sound Technology Guild, there's the Sound Portal Guild. And these are places that are, I think of them as like multi-stakeholder work streams. They're teams of people working like a squad, working in a particular direction. And it can be supporting pre-existing companies, foundations, networks, movements that are already having impact in that particular space. So with that said, Nikki, I would love you to introduce yourself. I've known Nikki for many, many years. She is absolutely incredible. We met through the World Economic Forum, and she's CEO of the Social Gastronomy Movement, which is an organization I've had the privilege of going down to be intimately involved in. It's a global network of food system innovators. And she's going to share with us about that movement and the Food Resilience Fund that has been one of the key focus of the Food Alliance. So Nikki, I've given you permissions if you want to share any slides, but over to you.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I think I'm going to hire Lucian to talk about us. Really worried. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. So thank you so much for the space, and so good to see many familiar faces. Thanks Magali, Charles that are here as well from the Social Gastronomy Movement, and many new faces as well. And I will not be presenting alone because I'm accompanied by a beautiful co-creator, Paola, who's calling in from Colombia. So we'll share the presentation. She was a network member and then also became part of the backbone organization that's driving this network globally. But this being said, I think everyone that's here now knows about the power of food. And I think what the social gastronomy movement really believes that the power of food can change the world that we live in. Because food interconnects everything. And it's an integral part of any culture, of anyone that's here. We all gather around the table every day. And we share this meal, we share stories, inspirations, we come up with new ideas. Everyone's equalized. Everyone looks each other in the eye around the table. And, but yeah, so this being said, a lot of people underestimate the power of food. Because the power of food is really that you can transform life. And so this is what we believe in the social gastronomy movement. And I'm going to share a few slides just to accompany us in our presentation. So I'm not representing just one organization, but I'm representing a network of organizations around the world that all believe in this power of food to transform the world. And what we're trying to do is to connect and engage people and projects from around the world and from the food systems to collaborate for the social change. And we're guided by values. It's not a traditional organization or a network, but this is just a collective of people and organizations that are doing amazing stuff already, that have projects around the food cycle. So it really starts from planting to collecting to distributing, cooking, sharing meals, as well as food waste solutions. And we're all guided by four principles and values, which is service. We are at service of humanity, and we are collaborating, because doing things in silos is not going to get us anywhere, just like Greg said. It's now, you know, like we cannot do it alone anymore. And so we truly believe in the value of collaboration. Gratitude, because just being here and being able to share food, to speak about food, to explore its power, we're grateful for. And then equity, because that's what we're fighting for together. And the way that we really see systems change happening is starting from an individual. And usually this PowerPoint is much prettier than just, I think I can actually do that here. Yay. As you can see, I'm a good cook, but not a good tech pioneer. So the change that we see happening starts from an individual basis. So even having access to food, health. So if you don't have that covered, you cannot think of the next layer. And then it's really, the societal change that we need to start see happening. And that's when, the part comes in, the bigger planet, the impact of food. It's one of the biggest gas emissions created by the agriculture space. And so we all need to come together to first change on an individual basis, give access to people for even as simple as dignity and having food, and then change on societal level and the planetary level. And for us, our magic recipe is CCPs. And I know that the shortcut reminds us something very different, but it's all about connecting, collaborating, and creating partnerships. And we have a few stories afterward where this really made a huge difference on just working with connecting the right people, collaborating, and creating these partnerships. This being said, I'll hand over to Paola, to Colombia, who will share a little bit more about our network.
Hey, Nikki. Yeah, a little bit slow today. Yeah, thank you all for connecting. I'm actually connected right now from Colombia, Medellin. As Nikki said, I have a foundation here, which is called Platos Sin Fronteras in Medellin, Colombia. And yeah, we have been part of the movement since already almost 3 years. And now I'm supporting in the whole collaboration piece. So what Nikki was saying, that we want to foster connection, collaboration, partnerships between organizations who are using food as tool for social change. And most of the people who are here and organizations are actually doing though. So I'm really grateful, Lucian, that you brought us all together in this session. And what I'm going to do now is presenting you the map. Nikki is actually sharing it right now. And it's great.
You want to jump and share, or?
Well, you can share it for me. It's good. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go into much detail, but right now we want to make a call. And then afterwards, I'm going to give the word again to Nikki. But we want to invite you to be part of the movement. Right now, there are different organizations who are already part from all over the world. In the map, which you can see right now, you can see what are we just launched it, and not even officially, right? So right now it's with some of our partners who already start getting mapped. So we have the SG organizations, which you can see here in purple. We have SG catalysts and experts. Some of them are actually part here of the group. I saw Charles Michel, who connected, who is also a great supporter of the as Lucien from the movement. So what we want is to really foster commonly, together, collectively, a change through food. You can see the SGM team here. You can see the experts who are supporting us. And on the left side of the map, you have different kind of, so for members who are part of this, you can see what are the capacities that different organizations are offering. And I can start searching around SDGs, like who is working in a similar SDG as me or in a similar sectors as me. So here, for example, in Platos Sin Fronteras, we did a big campaign and we're looking for people with culinary skills. And if the map would have existed, I would have gone here and do click here, and then I can see who is right now in the network offering those culinary skills. And then I can actually start contacting them. So João Lima, he's from Brazil. There is Mauricio Acuña, I think he's from Bolivia, and De La Costa. So I can start searching and connecting. And that's why we created this map, to make it more easy. Right now, during the pandemic, during the crisis, we are more and more connected through technological tools. And this map, yeah, is also something where we can connect virtually. But our big goal, of course, is to keep gathering locally and getting to events. The social gastronomy creates different kind of summits yearly, more than one. I have been participating in several, and the idea is that then in that moment we can start connecting more and more. So we wanted to show you this map, and one of the greatest things here is that I can start also looking for people and start seeing how can I collect funds around different SDGs, but around different types of activities. And that's what we also want. That was one of the big dreams when I was in the first summit. How can we start actually attracting funds and capital to keep doing what we do? And yeah, and that's one of the objective of the map as well. So now I'm gonna give the word back to Nikki. So you can maybe tell a little bit about the fund and about what we do there. And yeah, so thank you.
Perfect. And Nikki, if you could just try and wrap up with that, just so that we fit everything in, that'd be awesome.
Of course. So as I was saying, food can respond to many issues, and like Paola explained on the map that we're going to launch end of the month. We sent it out today to various stakeholders to get mapped. But one of the dreams has always been to disseminate and catalyze funds in order to get to these organizations, to these people that are doing amazing things on the ground. So they have local solutions, but how do you connect them globally to this system that's already existent in order to actually fill the gaps on a local level of the system? And so obviously things got very much accelerated during COVID times. And so this dream became a reality earlier because we needed to act quick. And this is where the idea of the collective fund came to be. Because as we know, like there's the big trends going on about eating healthy, eating locally, but and we always say we are what we eat. But like the one remaining question right now is for me, what are you if you don't eat? And so under this motto of giving dignity and hope and the food the people need right now, we created the collective fund. That's the Food Solidarity Fund. It was launched last week, and today actually we went live with the criteria. So as of today, anyone that's working with Food for Social Change, serving those in need right now, can apply for the fund, where we're intending to, until the 16th of October, the World Food Day, to feed 1 million people together. And through the CCPs, through these connections that need to be made on a local level, collaborations and partnerships, we will accelerate the impact that's already happening. So there's a beautiful example from Chile where after one of our virtual roundtables on Food for All, they got together and said, we need to do something as a community. So 6 chefs, by now there are 10 chefs, got together, started working with the mayor, with different stakeholders, companies, and they already fed over 25,000 meals to those in need in 6 weeks. And so just imagine if we can catalyze more funds, we can go way beyond the 1 million. And so this is just the potential of disseminating and catalyzing funds to those organizations that are doing great things, but don't have the visibility that many other organizations are. So we do believe that together we're stronger, and I think this UP game is going to give us many paths to drive this change forward, and the fund is just the first one that we can create. So thank you, everyone. And
Nikki, thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate you. And Nikki's calling in. We're a global group here, calling from all over. Nikki's in Brazil, Paola's in Colombia, and we're just getting warmed up. So with that said, Nikki, thank you. Thank you for everywhere you've shown up this last 8 weeks. Just such a delight to be in this game of life with you. So moving on, we're gonna hear from an amazing individual here, Mackenzie. Mackenzie, are you with us? I'm just, I can make you co-host if you want to share. I don't see Mackenzie. Let me check in with him. Maybe Adam, if you can share next with Symbiosis, that would be awesome.
Sure thing. My name's Adam Russell. I work, I founded a company called Upcycle Organics, and my background was as an educator for remote emergency medical technicians. So we would take civilians and military and take a semester-long class and condense it down to a digital online platform, followed by a 2-week-long skills assessment, training, practicum, testing, and then send people out into the world to start clinics in remote locations to take care of people. And during that process, during a few disaster response deployments, that model feels very appropriate for what we're looking at to reshape the agriculture system. Because our current agriculture system is in a massive triage catastrophe right now, whether we can see it or not. And so my personal interest is in that curriculum design and implementation and deployment of people with the appropriate skill set. So right now I work with Michael who I'll have speak next with Symbiosis, and we design, build regenerative ag solutions for clients with land, and we try to get it done as quickly as possible with the simplest means and most appropriate technologies we can. So Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Beautiful. Michael, your audio might be creating an issue there.
How about now?
That's good. There you go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, everybody. So yeah, we're a company that does ecological landscaping is usually the easiest way to explain it to someone. And we look to disrupt the landscaping industry, the agricultural industry, and everything that goes into those industries. And we're doing it in a small, but I believe very meaningful way. And we've been doing it for about 7 years now. And I had a realization recently because when I first started this company, I thought it was my opportunity and responsibility to heal the land. And as time went on and we would do these projects and designs and then leave it to the client, things would go wrong, things would pop up. And I realized that the land is doing its job. The land understands what it needs to do. And the problem was that the stewards didn't understand our job very well. And so I'm currently in the works of improving and making our business more focused on that dual transformation between the land that we inhabit and ourselves, thinking of ourselves as a very important part of the ecosystem instead of something removed from the ecosystem. And I think we have really good instincts already and really good reverence for the land, and that we learn destructive practices. But when people start to learn regenerative practices, it really seems to light this fire inside of them. And so I'm currently very excited to move the business in that direction while we continue to work with clients on designing and establishing their homesteads, regenerative farms. We're in Texas, and hemp farming just got legalized here. So I see an opportunity there for people to change the financial situation of farming. And I also see a responsibility to do it as regeneratively as possible, because we can find a way to farm things destructively. We've proven that. And so the trick is to do it in a regenerative way, and then look for those opportunities to transform ourselves. Because if we just focus on the trauma of the land and not our own trauma, I don't think that we're swimming far enough upstream to the source of the problem or to an interconnected problem. And so I'm working on that for myself as well, because that's continued to be a limiting factor for me, even as the business does well and things externally look well. The limiting factor is often my own trauma.
Michael, the thing I've learned about trauma is a person's ability. This is called the Planetary Collapse paradox. Joe, I'm forgetting his last name, came up with, where he said a person's ability to deal with the complexity at hand of planetary systems collapse is directly proportionate to their own grief and trauma work. And I think that's like that. That the other thing we know about trauma is created in relationship, and therefore healing trauma, integrating trauma is also done in relationship. So just some thoughts there. But thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. And would love actually, Nicholas, would love you to share your piece, but perhaps because it was just so relevant there, Nick, would you mind just giving us a quick 2 minutes on the mushroom farm and what's happening? Because we want to connect some dots in here. Would you be happy to do that? Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, sure, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah. Wow, super inspiring, all the work everybody's doing. It feels like we all share similar missions and goals. Here at the Mushroom Farm, we're trying to look at the intersection of agricultural technology, renewable energy, and regenerative science. As how is the merriment of the three moving forward possible to solve a lot of our food crisis? and how can we scale at the fastest rate possible the technological advances that we're able to make in these spaces, and make it available for developing nations. The hardest part is like the amount of people that are going to be going hungry. I've really obviously seen just even somebody in the chat throwing through some of these facts and these statistics. And really, if we're not creating more access to land for marginalized communities, and also more localized food solutions, which I believe comes from including some concepts as vertical farming and greenhouse technologies, as well as regenerative practices in storing carbon in the soil. And it isn't just one solution, it's all of the solutions. And really, really inspired with the words, and like, saving the world is not a competitive game. It is a cooperative and a collaborative game. And it is something that we all need to find ourselves working as closely with each other. So the research end of things is really creating an ecosystem where multiple different institutions and research bodies can actually start working side by side on the same work. We are so isolated and compartmentalized and doing a lot of the same work in 1,000 different places across the globe. And the idea that IP needs to be owned or bought and sold is some of the old paradigm that we have to leave behind. I was really inspired. I was actually listening to Greg's call, and I recommend everybody to get on with Gregory Wendt's programming that he's looking at changing the way that regenerative businesses go through. It's really interesting as far as impact funding goes, but really important to also look that it's really changing our idea of a return on investment to a ripple of impact. And I can't say that enough, in that the new legacy type-based stuff is not how much we have. Because if we're worried about how much our rate of returns are going to be, we are not going to be scaling these solutions fast enough. And all of it needs to go all in. And everybody on this call, I think, are all in type of people, and really honored and humbled to be part of this. And thank you so much, Lucian, for holding all these conscious conversations and consistently bringing this up on not just one front, but multiple fronts, and constantly being a conscious connector, and doing the really hard work of like, how do we bring all the pieces together? So yeah, I can be reached at nick@themushroom.farm. You can also check out a little bit of what we're doing and see some fancy pretty pictures at themushroom.farm. And feel free to get at us. We are going to be potentially hosting like 1 or 2 people here soon in the next few weeks to be able to do some socially distanced experiences on our land, on the beach, just an hour outside of San Francisco. So much love for all the humans on these calls. I miss you all. The connection of not being able to hug you all right now is really difficult. Yeah, we're looking forward to that opportunity. Hey, Poppy. Love you.
Miss you too, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you. And yeah, we really see that, you know, the band is getting back together. I've never experienced magnetism more than this moment for the people that are part of this, you know, kind of an emerging moment of like, how do we respond? How do we remember what we're here to do? You know, we certainly see the Mushroom Farm's embrace of new technologies as like an awesome kind of canvas for us to experiment on flipping the agricultural model, like testing new technologies. We've got Dan Mapes on the call from Versus, doing some really incredible stuff. I'd love, Dan, for you to say a word in a moment. And also Khan is here. Khan, would you be able to, Nick talked about soil carbon. I'd love for you to share a word about what Terramera is doing if you'd be happy to.
Sure, that sounds great. And thanks, Lucian. Just building on what Nick was saying, I mean, this is, it's pretty impressive, the amount of energy and the scope and the work you put into bringing people from all over the world together that are working together on this stuff. You know, it's amazing to see so many people who actually care about where we're going and how we can actually use food and agriculture as a system for change. It's one of the most powerful ones that we have. You know, more than 50% of the available arable land in the world we actually directly manage and can actually use it for really positive change. Just Nick was talking about collaboration, and I think, Nick, you've got that exactly right. I mean, it's not humans fighting humans. It's like we're right now. It's a long-term battle, but it's really humans against extinction. And if we can actually collaborate on how we can actually work together for that, I think it's actually a mix of ways to actually build organizations and companies and technologies and build platforms to collaborate. So maybe I'll just share a couple of, okay, I can't.
I can let you share. If you, let me give you sharing rights here. Make co-host, cool. You got that.
I was just gonna share, a quick couple of things. So let me just make this a little smaller.
And by the way, this, I'm going to speak while Khan is just getting this set up. I have no doubt whatsoever, that Khan and Terramera is going to achieve their mission of feeding 1 billion people by 2030. And so if anyone doesn't know Terramera, we really should. And it's a major player in flipping the whole model of agriculture. So thank you for all your work, Khan.
Thanks, Lucy. You are very kind. And we are just, I think we are one player in trying to pull together how we might be able to really reimagine how we grow food and deal with some of the biggest problems we're facing. We've set, Terramera is a technology company. We really started looking at green chemistry and trying to solve how you could actually allow organic farming to scale. In doing that, we started looking at the materials that were being used and the practices that were being used in organic farming and versus conventional farming, and tried to deconstruct how you could actually bridge and allow those systems to scale. And part of those was looking at the materials we use on farms and why the organic materials were working less effectively and consistently. So we really started as a green chemistry company that still has that piece, but has moved a lot into data. And so, that green chemistry piece is really supports the first of our audacious goals, which is reducing and eliminating 80% of the synthetic pesticide load that's used in agriculture by 2030. And we're on our way with that, with this green chemistry platform that allows us to use, 90% or less of the synthetic chemicals that we're using today, and allows organic materials to work much better. It's a laborious process. It does take a lot of data. We're modeling the materials that we're using and trying to see where they actually need to get to in a plant. I'm not going to bore you with the technical details, but we're like, I'm not actually going to even show this because it'll confuse everyone, but we actually literally are modeling all of the materials and the plants computationally and trying to see how we can make that work a lot better. But the other piece is we realize if once we use these materials, we can actually more effectively, we can actually see what people are doing, what they're using, what they're not doing, and how everything that we do in managing plants, plant health, using either materials or watering, whatever we do to a farm, how that's actually affecting plant health. And so we have this data platform we call the Plant Intelligence Engine it's really codifying the effect of plant inputs and the response that happens to the plant in the plant. We also realized we can't really properly understand that without including the soil, and that's the third piece, which is increasing soil organic carbon by at least 100%. So we're combining now these data platforms of understanding what's going on in the plant and with understanding soil, and we're building out a platform to really scale out and understand how we can quantify the amount of soil carbon in a way that's much more scalable than what we're doing right now. So we're collaborating with various partners on this project, and doing it and we're looking to do it at a huge scale so that people can trust that when you take these actions, we can really measure what's actually happening in the soil, and we can build out a set of technologies that we can scale really globally. And if you look through these goals, it's really what we're trying to do is build a technology platform that people can use with whatever they're trying, whether it's a better practice or whether it's a new technology, to be able to have some confidence about what's, when you try these new things, what's actually happening to plant health yields and to soil carbon, and so that we can actually connect the environmental, the social, and the economic benefits to both the farmer, the grower, and society for actually taking these actions and build a real objective basis for it. So, and if we can do this, you can see it's actually building out a technology platform to make regenerative farming economical and scalable, and that's really the goal of behind everything we're trying to build out.
Beautiful, Khan. Thank you so much for your work here. Thank you. And I think that's a perfect tee up. Dean, I know Mackenzie isn't with us. I'm not sure. I texted him, but one of the things that Mackenzie, who's just an all-star hero of food systems change, one of the things we've been discussing in the Food Technology Guild is this essentially stack of technologies that can start with the way we actually finance agriculture, and flipping the models so that instead of farmers getting paid once they take their produce to market, actually having demand-based, flipping the model to demand-based so that farmers can get paid in advance, which does so many things. It allows us to invest in a lot more innovation when that happens. And so there's so many incredible technologies coming to the agricultural space. I believe it's Kimball Musk said that the opportunity for ag tech is greater than all of the opportunity that was created by the internet thus far. So it's phenomenal. This is both enormous impact, both an imperative, as well as one of the greatest economic opportunities of our time. Just like the SDGs, there is no greater economic opportunity than us achieving the global goals, but also there's no greater economic necessity than us achieving the global goals. So, Dean, would you be able to introduce BEX 360 in a couple of minutes, just as a platform that's designing ways to flip the financing model?
Yeah, I can discuss it a little bit. I don't know what Mackenzie kind of had prepared for this. I just talked to you on Tuesday for the first time ever. So,
yeah, if you could just introduce the company and what you're doing and what your goals are.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So BEX 360 has been around for about 5 years now. I'm one of the co-founders. Dan Jones is my partner, and we've been working to deliver a platform that allows us to trace and goods from developing country mainly all the way through to the markets and be able to make that connection to that consumer. When Dan spent about 15 years doing international development, mining and setting up things in the Congo and certain, and a bunch of other areas in the developing world, he came away with this concept of being able to apply a trusted method to analyze and objectively determine the quality of a product, value it, and then be able to keep track of that all the way through the supply chain, delivering all that information or whatever content that makes sense to the consumer so they can make decisions on buying these goods. We've been working in coffee, cocoa, palm oil, minerals, you name it. We've kind of done a pretty broad approach, trying to not be limited to one vertical. So obviously along that platform to develop that trust, we use the blockchain to make all the information and the data we want to collect along there immutable. At the same time, we use that same technology to actually make financial transactions and smart contracts throughout the supply chain. So I think Mackenzie's vision, he says it a lot cleaner and more concise, but he feels that the being able to have a pre-purchased item and be able to finance these. We've never had financing before, so that they can do the things and that you guys are just talking about. Do the improvements to the land, do the improvements to the soil, do the regenerative agriculture, do all the things that we know we need to do to make the food system in the world better. So we've had some success in some of the bigger companies. So we've kind of gone from both directions. We enter at the consumer end, like a supermarket, and those, the supermarkets have the vision of being able to make claims that they're trying to, buy goods that are produced in an ethical way, and so they're using it to prove that to their consumers. That helps us a little bit by pushing down into some of the intermediaries and stuff like that are traditionally maybe not open to those kinds of things, and bringing that transparency to some of these supply chains. We also work with a lot of groups that are just like you guys, just have that vision. Start out a company that just is based on providing the transparency. A company like Pacha Soap is one of our customers, and solely for their essential oils. And they just flat out just want to make sure they capture every aspect. So we're tracking all their payments to every one of their producers in Ghana, Liberia, Peru, and so forth. With all that, with the guiding and tracing and keeping track of all the goods that are supplied to markets in the developing world, we also give it an opportunity to layer in the sustainability aspects and link those to those goods. So our vision is to be able to have the goods flowing into the consumer, and the consumer being able to make choices on those goods, and actually push back down into those supply chains, monetary value to try to boost the I guess what would it be, the speed and adoption of the sustainability aspects down on the ground and where these goods are coming from. So.
Beautiful, Dean. Thank you for awesome work. I think that we're seeing consistently, this is like flipping the model and using data and transparency. Supply chain transparency is going to be essential here. So very excited about that. Thank you.
Yeah, and we've done a pretty kind of a broad approach to it, so that the platform is actually very customizable. So we're looking for people that are interested in using it in ways that we haven't even thought about how to use it. So please reach out to Mackenzie or I, and we can start working together. And we're at the point where a lot of these things we can kick off pretty low cost and give people the ability to collaborate on from anywhere about regarding some of these kind of larger, broader kind of scopes that you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Dean. And let's Dan, I would love you to share a word on verses, because we've been seeing that as like an essential layer of this kind of epic stack that's emerging. But before, Nick, do you want to just, if it could be 30 seconds, because there's a couple more people that we want to just make sure we just showcase these pieces in here, but love to hear your thoughts on that.
Totally. I just wanted to share, because I've had a few really amazing phone calls with Mackenzie, and how really what this is possible and allowing us to do to have that transparency layer is we're able to absolutely share information that can come from either pests or dealing with drought or dealing with actually what to harvest and what to plant. Because there's so much competition that farmers seem to go through, and it's such a competitive market that if we all kind of knew what a little bit everyone was planting, we probably wouldn't plant the same of everything. So being able to share that with the localized farming community, and not everybody has the same type of tomato, but there's literally 20 different types of tomatoes or 30 different types of lettuces, greens, or zucchinis, all of a sudden you're not competing with each other, and you're actually expanding the market capability. So that's all I wanted to do. I'll be going for days, but obviously I wanted to just add to that. Thank you, Dean. Cheers. Love you, Lucian.
Thank you, Nick. Dan Mapes, a total legend here. Dan, I'd love for you to share about verses.
Great, Lucian. So great to be here. When Lucian and I met a few years ago, we realized, oh yeah, we're going to be working together the rest of our lives. So this is just another step along the way. What we're doing is we're attacking some of the fundamental problems at an entirely different level. We agree with everything that's being said here, and we felt that there were some infrastructure things that needed to be addressed. And that is that our current World Wide Web, our current internet, has some fundamental flaws that are actually are going to get in our way as we try to move forward. And the most fundamental flaw, of course, is that it was designed 25 years ago by a data scientist who really wanted to promote the free flow of information around the world. That happened, but a lot of other kind of unfortunate things happened along the way. So now we've got a web that's completely hacked. Everything we do is tracked, and you can't tell what's real and what's fake. The good news is that little web, which is a multi-trillion-dollar piece of technology today, with 10 billion computers plugged into it, including 4 billion smartphones, is almost like a little sandbox compared to what's coming. I mean, we're all headed toward a Star Trek civilization. I've been kind of imagining it's kind of a mashup of Star Trek and Burning Man. It's kind of where we're headed. And if we're going to get there, we need an internet of everything, not just an internet of documents. And the HTTP protocol, which was designed in 1994, was a very limited protocol because the chips were so slow and the networks were so slow that you could barely download a web page. So what we have is a web of pages. We have 6 billion pages all linked together, sitting on machines. Well, what's that really going to do about telling us about the quality of soil or atmospheric conditions or other kinds of things? We need now a web of IoT devices. We need a three-dimensional web. We need augmented and virtual reality. We need artificial intelligence. We need blockchains and cryptocurrencies. So we had to start and rewrite the fundamental protocols, because what we want is a new commons. We want a new digital commons. It's got to be a decentralized infrastructure, just like the web. Only this time it's spatial. That means we can really shrink wrap the entire planet and know what's going on every inch of the planet, good and bad, just the way our autonomic nervous system knows what's going on in our bodies. And when I eat food, I don't have to calculate how much I should send to my feet. My nervous system and my intelligence built into my body knows exactly how to give every cell what it needs. So that's what's coming, obviously, is we're going to have a universal basic support system for every human being on the planet, but we can't get there with the current web. So the spatial web is a tool to let us get there. And when I saw Lucian's work around Savannah, it was like, oh yeah, you're building the thing that sits right on top of the of this new web. And so we kind of formed a joint partnership at that early date, and our technology is now coming to fruition. It's been 3 years in development, and it is a combination of a nonprofit foundation, which gives away the protocols, and then a profit company, which also makes some application software. But anybody can use the protocols and write their own application software, just the way the web works. So it's a new web. It's a three-dimensional web. We call it the spatial web. Some people call it Web 3.0. Science fiction called it the metaverse. But it's going to give us some powerful new tools to interconnect everything, because when you have an open global standard, and this is IEEE backed standard, then every IoT device can talk to every other IoT device. So we can explain where we want drones to land. We can create drone highways in the sky that keep them from flying over certain areas. We can do all kinds of things that we can't currently do. And I think all of you wonderful people doing great work in ag tech, and I grew up on a farm and I own 250 acres in Santa Barbara, and it's all solar powered and all permacultured. So I'm right there with you. But I think as you guys get a hold of this technology and we all kind of figure out how to deploy it, it'll be a leveraging tool for everything you're wanting to do, and a way of connecting everybody all over the world. Large-scale virtual environments, my gosh, we can all hang out together in beautiful worlds. We can share our knowledge more effectively with everybody. We can learn from each other. So that's kind of a quick look. I kind of feel like I don't feel like we're in a desperate situation. I feel this is exactly the perfect spot. The universe knows what it's doing. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Arthur C. Clarke wrote a book called Childhood's End. It kind of feels like it's applicable to what's happening now. It's time for us to wake up and grow up and show up. And that's what we're doing, and that's what you're all doing. What we're talking about today will be the new normal in 2050. And so congratulations to all of us for doing this. Lucian had a really great thing that he's been doing. He goes out 10 or 20 years and throws a party for the success that we had. And we did that in Davos together. It was really great. So I think that's the right attitude. We're going to succeed. And this is our humble contribution to help in the process.
Love you, Dan, so
I'll
much.
put some links in the chat too, so you can follow up and we can take it from there.
Yeah, yeah. It's so you remind everyone of a certain professor, I think. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dan. I'm just so delighted. Welcome to the game, Dan. I can't wait to see. We'll catch up this weekend. Now I just booked a flight down, so exciting.
Awesome.
We're gonna run a little over on food into community, but because they're completely connected. I would love. I see Mackenzie's here. Would we be able to, let's see, Stephen Brooks, I definitely want you to share a word, because this is what you're doing with Ecoversity is super relevant. And also, Stephen, do you want to just shoot, actually, next, Nicholas, could you just share Nicholas is a new addition here and has been amazing and is such a impassioned change maker. And Nicholas, could you just share a quick word just about Cowsim, but more broadly about what you see as the stack?
Do you want me to, howdy everyone. My name is Nicholas Free. Thank you so much for letting me talk to all you wonderful people, and hearing all of y'all's passion and drive really just gives me goosebumps all over. So I love it. Thank you guys so much. So to get to the point, I created a virtual, I come from an urban Dallas, Texas, didn't have any cattle handling experience. And so when I went to Texas A&M to learn animal sciences and I got put into a pen with live cattle, I was decently okay. But the people that I was hanging out with and who were actively trying to learn stockmanship were having a very difficult time, especially the people who come from an urban background. And so I love technology and I love agriculture. And I was trying to mend the two for quite a while. And it was really difficult because from the professors that I approached, it was very hard for them to conceptualize and visualize what I was putting down when I was telling them. But finally, I found a professor who was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And he allowed me to create this virtual cattle handling game. And so I created this game, and we were able to implement it into the education system. So I taught the lab I taught 3 or 4 different labs, and then we went into the computer lab and actually did the game, and we're able to get data from that. And we are currently using it to publish a paper. But one of the things that I have heard people talking about, am I allowed to share the screen?
1 second. Would you, 1 second.
If not, that's totally cool. I can just talk.
We've got to move on. We've got too many amazing people.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
You can share that. You can share that image. I've just made you.
Okay. I'll be really quick. So here's a pretty basic outline of kind of what I was envisioning in the future, because this is where I see technology going. Because I believe that this virtual platform, like we were just talking about, this place where all the people can come together and learn. Not only, I think it starts at the people. We need to empower people to create a better world, and everyone loses when we don't have the proper teaching and training materials. And with virtual technology and augmented reality, and with the right people, we could completely shift the way that we teach, train, and educate the whole community. And I think that the wonderful group of people that everyone is here, like I'm getting goosebumps, like I said, just thinking about the possibilities of the future for virtual technology. I was a showcase for how you could do it in ag. And I think other people, when they put the headset on and realize what you can actually accomplish with this, it's just unbelievable. And so I don't want to take anybody else's time, but if you're interested in this stuff, I would love to talk more about it with all of you, especially all of the fun stuff about it. I don't want to take anybody else's time, but I appreciate you letting me talk.
Nicholas, you're a legend, but delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Stephen Brooks, have you got a moment before you go?
Yes, yes. Here in La Ecovilla, which is a
You're breaking up, my friend.
There's here, 170. It's right there. Everything you see here is food forest. There's guanabana and egg fruit and mango and avocado and cashew and papayas and pinkanonas and jackfruit and pejibayes. I mean, just hundreds. It's basically, we merged a giant food forest collection of genetics merged with housing. And we're growing big time, this whole area. The goal is to get 1,001 hectares and merge conservation, reforestation, regenerative agriculture, community, education, and event space. Part of that is the education is the ecoversity, is what we've really been focusing on here. And basically, we all the things that you're all talking about is brilliant. And how can we keep spreading this knowledge in a way that, you know, we could just radically educate people both online and in person. Our farm on the Caribbean is called Punta Mona. We started it 25 years ago. We have one of the largest collections of useful plants on earth, and it's basically the first campus of the ecoversity. And we're about to launch 4 online courses, from, you know, creating the homestead of your dream to it's a permaculture design course. And yeah, feeling so pumped, so love listening to everybody. It's amazing what everybody's doing. It's incredible how we are all working on the different aspects of the same dream. It's unbelievable how much more organized we're getting. You know, it's like, I think a lot of this brilliance was like flourishing in the 60s, but the cloud of the good LSD and the just, you know, lack of focus, now we're finally ready to blast off. So I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm sorry that I missed the last several calls. I'm literally like in the field every day. It's rainy, beginning of rainy season here in Costa Rica. And so it's like full blown planting madness happening. And I'm doing it every day.
We love you, Stephen, so much.
I love you.
It's Netflix. So Stephen is a, you know, part of what we try and do with the game is bring together the kind of archetypal characters of systems change, and there's you've seen many of them today. So thank you, Stephen. Looking forward to the Netflix show. It comes out in like a week or so, right?
It comes out on July 10th. It's called Down to Earth with Zac Efron. And we went to 8 different countries seeking out like ecological wizards, and he came to Costa Rica and found me, and we traveled around for a week, and it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. Like somebody sent me the trailer when it came out at 20,000 views. Now I think it has 1.1 million views. It's getting so much press and so much action, and I'm confident that it's gonna. Yeah, I mean, I saw what he did in Costa Rica, and I know that he did the same kind of thing in 7 other countries. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
It's happening. It's on
Beautiful.
Netflix. Yeah.
Let's tell the stories. Down to Earth, right?
Love, guys. Thank you.
Down to Earth, you said? So, I think that was the name, Down to Earth. We'll check. Great. Community impact, folks. We're running a little behind. Bear with us. We're going to try and do some bridging here of community impact in food. We call it the Golden Bridge, which you're going to hear more about. But with that, we have, let's see, but where are we? Rachel would love for you to share a little word about primordial flow and connect the dots here with what Stephen's doing.
Amazing. Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel, and I am outside of Austin, Texas. We just purchased a 40-acre property that we intend to create and prototype a connection with our inner city Austin Community Center in Jersey Warehouse. And we are working with Stephen with Live Past 365, and we're really focused on the media. And yeah, just so excited to be here and to see all these beautiful intentions, and we are here to collaborate and work together to save the world. So without further ado, Stephen can tell us more about the tech and the media. It's really exciting. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Stephen, if you could share about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well,
it's a perfect transition actually into.
Well, we can just do this, super brief because I know we're running over. I just sent the website. I've been in production and broadcast pretty much my whole life, and very fortunate to be working with Livecast 365. I'd love to share the deck with you, just fly through it really quick, but basically,
I don't think we'll have time just for that, but we will love to bring you in at the right moment, just because we've got a whole community impact piece. But the website's awesome to share.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that, and then the deck as well. Basically, in that nutshell, it's emancipation from YouTube, Google, all of the big servers. It's private servers, and it's owning your own content. Hello?
You good? I just muted Justin.
Basically, it's we're all talking about spreading this great vision and doing all this. We are being censored. Influencers are being censored. We're just getting taken off, and we're not being rewarded. And so with Livecast 365, we're emancipating the information to get it out there. So it's privately funded, and the technology is the best I've ever seen, and always looking for the best technology there is in this space. From working on the most watched webcast in the history of the internet in 2004 with X Prize with Pierre Dermanis and all of that. Our clients now with Livecast 365 are Formula One, the F1 racing, the NFL. All the players this year will have their own channels. And what's going on, if you look at the graphs from MySpace and what happened with, MySpace was it, and along comes Facebook and YouTube. What's going on now is cable cutting, and the emancipation is going on, and people are going to Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Sling. It's the whole new trend, and it's where you own your content and you can create your own revenue streams. You can have it out for free and possibly have partners, or you can have, we also work with top agencies and have a relationship we can run ads. So right now, if you put your stuff up on YouTube, they could be running an ad for something that you completely disagree with and alienate your audience. And plus you're getting some pennies that they throw you from YouTube or for whatever. There's just really exciting ways to be honored for your content, and you own your own content, and it's live streaming and or pay-per-view and or with the commercials, ads that you get to pick and when you want them to run, and it's completely yours. What's really exciting about this is that we are built on, we have a blockchain component, and we'll have our own coin, and it's a value exchange coin. And there's also a store on the site. So you're out there farming or you're doing whatever, you can scroll over and click on that implement or produce or whatever, the shirt you're wearing or whatever, and instantly purchase that. And you can be using coins that all of the channels and networks that are on our Livecast 365 will all have the opportunity to have and to use for their exchange. So you could be paying to watch a movie or go to an educational program with these coins that are just going to be ubiquitous with all of the channels that major influencers are going to. And like I said, countries are using, we support Ireland. We do all of their streaming, Next Merryweather Fight. Anyway, I could go on and on.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We will sync, because there's going to be in this conversation with the community impact as we transition to the community impact game. One thing that Roxy's going to be discussing is this creative studio for creatives, storytellers around disruptive innovation, transformative change. And
that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to get all of that out there, and I'm a producer. We have Rachel. We're talking about our ranch out here. We've got a studio. We're streaming. And have to imagine people and get their and get your content, get everyone's content and information to everybody. So
beautiful.
Support and produce all that. And I'm at everybody's service. Feel free to.
Thank you, Stephen. Please do stay on, and you'll see the connection between food and community. We feel incredibly privileged to be speaking to so many people at the forefront of systems change, and just seeing how everything is interconnected. It's amazing when you're spending 8 hours a day peering into the future. Roxy, it's a delight to have you here. And now we have Mackenzie with us, and we would be amiss not to have Mackenzie do the closing remarks for a vision for the future of agricultural technology. Mackenzie, I'd love for you to wrap up for us here as we transition to community.
Thank you so much, Lucian, and what an incredible gathering of people. It's been a realization of several weeks of conversation and collective visioning to feel all of the talent and the technology and the tools that these people have built come together to affect what realistically is, not just what we would call something that's holistic or ecological in consideration, but is the simple physical reality of the plane that we exist in. We cannot have community without food. We cannot have farming without community. We cannot have water without soil, and us existing without water and soil, and the basis, the fundamental inputs and environments necessary to have a conducive human life. The tools that we've been presented in the past have largely been influenced by private agendas. The structures and the regulatory considerations around food and community have been corporate considerations, have been lobbyists and private individuals fighting for their self-interest. And I think we find ourselves in a moment where collectively we're all taking a deep breath and realizing how connected we really are and how indivisible the impacts of what people do in the world around the people around them and the communities and the bioregions, the economies, the ecologies. These are all considerations that we now have the technology to visualize. We now have artificial intelligence to help us analyze tremendous amounts of data and present cogent, actionable, understandable information. In the past, if you wanted to get into any of these projects, you had to read 2-pagers and watch somebody's presentation and get pitched by some scrappy entrepreneur that doesn't speak whatever your dialect is, if that's banker or farmer or trader or local advocate for soil and farmers who really wants to help and signs up for the CSA but isn't really sure what else to do. We want people to be able to gamify healing the earth. We want people to be able to gamify agriculture and to have tech support for agriculture. We want people to collect the aggregated knowledge that we're losing in this generation of farmers that are dying in the midst of the largest transfer of wealth in human history. We're also losing an incredible wealth of agricultural knowledge that we can preserve and turn into best practices for the world. And in exactly the same way that MOOP style education has exponential potential, the ability to go from teaching one person to millions of people simultaneously, I believe that the impacts that we're all seeking have the ability to reach the entire planet simultaneously. We have the reach, we have the technology, we have the tools, we have the initiative. We have people around the world gathered right here, right now, focused on soil, focused on the water cycle, focused on climate change, focused on the realities of food shortages, food insecurity for the entire world right now and for the foreseeable future. And we can all stand around and talk about it, and we can listen to mission social impact investors tell us about their investment theses. Or somebody can get serious about what we're going to do today and tomorrow, and what the support and the management and the tools look like for those efforts. And it feels like the people that are gathered together on this call today are doing a lot of that work in the world. And it feels like we have an ecosystem of people, places, and things to work with right here, right now. We've got pieces on this game table, and we've got a lot of pretty incredible people to do something about it. So, if there's a wrap up, I think we stand on the precipice of greatness. All investing is impact investing. What impacts do your investments really have in the world? And if this is the world that you want to see, step up, because we're waiting and we're ready. Thank you, Lucian.
Oh, Oh, Mackenzie, you're such a legend. Thank you. Thank you. And Mackenzie is so aware of so many different pieces of this stack. He's really is like a lifetime of Dharma. And one of the things we've noticed is that so often investment decisions are made by the investors based on like what they're receiving from pitches, and then they're assessing that way. But that's still the me, not the we. And what we're proposing here is that if we can create an ecosystem of trust and truth, that we can move these investments into that are essentially fueling the creation of the Planetary Commons and stacking all these solutions together, we can enable the collective intelligence of where that capital should flow, just like Dan Mapes described the human body. You don't have to think to send nutrients to your foot. The human body is an intelligent system. It's a holistic system. And the way we think about systemic change should be like the human body, as above and so below. We on this call are like the immune system. We're like the T cells of the planetary system. We're fighting an infection. The reality is we've been conquered by capitalism, and we're fighting that infection, and we're now at the point of that process where we're actually applying collective intelligence. And so as we shift over now to community, you'll see the interdependence between the two. There's so much interdependence between everything coming from sound, and we see some of the sound folks here. Andrea, Serena, lovely to have you here. We can't. It's like these are like pillars of the temple. The temple cannot be built without each one of these pillars. And so as we're thinking about new games, we're thinking about one, we're designing one at the moment called the Golden Bridge, which is all about how do we take families of influence into funding this transition, funding new systemic experiments. Because the reality is, if we had a wholesale system collapse right now, it's going to be a complete disaster. And, way worse than the pitchforks are coming. We are completely underprepared for the inevitable, frankly. And so recognizing that and recognizing that the only way, this is way more complex than any individual can possibly grasp. The only way we're going to do this is by forming ecosystems of trust and truth. And that's really what the whole game is about. So thank you, Mackenzie, so much. And let's go to now. Tatiana, I wonder if you could kick us off here with the Leaders on Purpose, and just maybe if you could synthesize what we've been doing with community impact, and then we'll go. Nico is going to talk about the Planetary Commons and the invitation we've got there. And Julian, it's great to see you. I'd love if you could share that tree image, or at least explain it. And then Roxy and Julian will talk about storytelling and like spreading memes, essentially spreading the good news.
Totally.
Awesome. Tatiana, are you all right? Shall I give you I see your eyes, so I know you're not going to be presenting, right?
No, I'm in the middle of nowhere, so I hope my connection holds. We got some crazy news today. So what have we been talking and working upon really to understand how can we bring all the global community leaders together and align and coordinate towards one future, 2030, the golden decade. And what if we have the possibility, if there is a shift coming in the economic system and there's enough power behind that to accelerate the shift towards that, how can we accompany this shift through all this amazing and incredible work which is being done everywhere around in all these projects you guys are involved in the art community, food community, in technology, and bringing really the most authentic and powerful projects together to accelerate a shift and to interconnect basically all the T cells into one direction, into one planetary strategy. And what Leaders on Purpose, we're working with global leaders on a structural component where we are very excited because we very likely can share next week much more, but we are definitely at the verge of exactly this economic shift. And yeah, so we're thinking about, if we have this journey, a leadership journey, which is transforming powerfully, how can we align through events and everything to energize that? How can we fund this economic shift and this full ecosystem? And how can we enable a principle-based engagement model around that? Because on the one hand, I can see, as you also mentioned, on the one hand, so much is happening, but it's also urgent that we align strategically so that we have a chance, right? Yeah, so this is that from our
Amazing. Thank you. And Tatiana and I met in Dallas and have been, she's doing amazing work with her partner Chris around bringing together global CEOs in this, and now looking at how we expand that stakeholder base further, and doing a lot of work with the UN. In September there's going to be, I don't know if you can share anything about that, Tatiana?
Yes, so we have been part of the private sector engagement strategy with the World Bank, but now we are part of the private sector engagement strategy with the UN. And in fact, there will be some news coming out next week, which will quite severe. So the question is, and it's a huge opportunity to energize leaders who are really bold enough coming out of a system and going the steps further and further to transitioning, and how can we enable the shift and connect everything else around that, and to really make this a whole global blast and a powerful and fun journey, but for and hopeful. And I would love to share something more in the next call.
For sure, yeah. We'll have the harvest in 2 weeks today for this, so we'll be able to share more on that. Thank you, Tatiana. And this, a word on the Golden Bridge here, that concept comes from the art of war. And, there's an immense amount of fear. I think we're probably at peak fear right now. And, to share some stats, the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is a really good kind of weather report for the planetary health, one could say. The Edelman Trust Barometer showed that 4 out of 5 people on the planet don't believe the system's working for them. Surprise, surprise. I don't think that surprises any of us. We know that's not the case when, 7 men own more than 50% of the world's population. But the scarier fact that I think a lot of people are not aware of is 2 out of 3 people in the world don't believe the future is going to be even worse than the present. They have a dystopian view of the future. And I personally believe that our reality begins with our thoughts. And when the collective has such a, let's say, poor view, a dystopian view of the future, we end up creating that. It's called hyperstition. When a group has a belief system, you end up creating the feedback loops that create that particular belief system. And so that's why we think it's so imperative that the game we're playing is actually a game of narratives. It's a game of storytelling. And ultimately, the up game is about creating a new story, the greatest story ever told, which is that over this golden decade that we actually can transition from an age of separation, an age of the lone wolf, an age of the individual, an age of consumerism, etc., into the regenerative age, into the from me to we, the return to community, into the age of abundance, because we actually just have a design. The whole system's designed and incentivized to have what we've currently created. And so how we do that isn't the job of a company. It's like new forms of organization, and that's ultimately we've following in the footsteps of Buckminster Fuller, the best way to change the existing realities, not to compete with it, but build a new model. And his conclusion was that would be the new world game in the design science decade. The golden decade is the design science decade. And so Roxy, maybe if you could introduce what you're doing there with BFI, I think it would be a really good place to continue from here, and then we'll go to Nico.
Sure. Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Roxy.
For having me, of course, yes. So thank you for the introduction, Lucian. I am working with BFI. So my creative studio, Hub Ritual, has partnered with BFI. And what began as something local, now due to COVID, ended up opening up into something global. And that something began as a seed looking at this regenerative transition that we must go through to regenerate our culture and our planet over the decade ahead. And when I sat down with my longtime colleague, Amanda Ravenhill, who's, as many of you know, is the director of the Buckminster Fuller Institute, she had been looking at how might we reframe Bucky's design science decade of 50 years ago to meet the decade ahead. And so we decided to join forces and create a program. And this program is now called the Design Science Studio. And the applications just closed for the first round. There's many ways to get involved, and I'll go ahead and send in the chat a link to stay connected to the studio's movements, as well as other components. But I'll tell you a little bit more about the studio itself, and I'll do my best to keep it within 5 minutes. So the exciting thing about being a part of this conversation is that so many of you are obviously steeped in the importance of helping to create literacy and understanding, embodied understanding globally for the transition we need to go through. And that has to start with people taking the time to shift the way that they look at the world. And I am an artist by trade, also a producer and an experienced designer. I've been working at the intersection of multidisciplines and art for a very long time because I really believe in the power of art to educate, empower, and transform. And so the Design Science Studio is specifically being designed for creators, which is not just fine artists, it's also philosophers and writers and musicians and data visualization artists and all different kinds of designers to come together and look at how they can facilitate creative translation for adoption, understanding, and propelling this movement forward. And so the structure of the studio is 3 parts. One is that it has a really robust curriculum. And the curriculum, to point right now, is covering everything from comprehensive anticipatory design science, Fuller's principles, the sustainable development goals, yes, as a counterpoint, but broadly looking at planetary challenges, opportunities, and solutions, taking this frame of the design science phases, which go from reconciliation and commitment to restoration and capital transfer, to resilience, coming together, regeneration, celebration, rejoicing, and circularity. And this is a frame which is not meant to be completely linear. These things need to happen at the same time to a certain extent, but by future casting and retrocasting, looking at how we need to get there and using that as a frame to help people see that there has to be a designed path to fulfill our goals as humanity to support all life and not just human life. We're helping use the design science phases as the path to get there, but it's not meant to be prescriptive, just sort of descriptive of one frame. We'll also be going through the world game and geoscope, different creative applications and strategies, systems thinking approaches, societal and systemic, right? We want to make sure to cover both pieces, synergetics, futurism, and world building. So the curriculum is really robust, but it's also designed to have design sprints and studio time and support for the creators to actually be in the trenches, coming together in learning pods, and propelling their work in the world. So studio community, obviously, there's a different structures that are being put into place to support and uplift the community coming together. The creators, we've had about 300 individuals at our group supply, so really powerful group of people coming together. And then there's different showcases. Right now we're really looking at strategic launches and how might we help this work have the most impact in the world. And so some of that is likely going to be at the end of the period of the studio. There will be initiatives, not just single projects or not just single pieces of art that are created, but that are birthed that we're going to need to continue to help mentor and support out in the world. There's also space for your initiatives if you have things that need creative translation. Really excited to look at how we might group sectors that need support and help funnel the expertise of thought leaders through and with the creators to help create creative campaigns that can help continue to push on. So it's a lot more to tell you about, but I'll stop there. It's really exciting. We're gonna get started with the cohort, this first cohort in just about a month and some change. And there's lots of ways to get involved. I'm gonna just push send to my little message in the chat. You can check out the studio itself. You can get connected and plug in through the Airtable forum. And also if you want to support helping create more stipends and financial abundance for the studio and the creators, there's also a way for you to just click on the support button and donate to the campaign. Also email me or reach me by phone. I'm totally available. Really excited to be a bridge, a conduit, and a support for building capacity within our creative community to be far more than our individual capacity so that they can help inspire and uplift and help propel the change in the world that we all know is possible. That's what I'm up to.
Roxy, you're so amazing. Really appreciate you being here. Roxy was like such a heavy lifter in pulling off Planet Home, which many of us know. It was an incredible, like almost crescendo of our community in September. Well, it was a crescendo of our community. It was such a gathering place where everybody started to realize we really are a very connected and very empowered group of people envisioning a different future. And so thank you, Roxy, for this. And we've seen consistently this being a kind of missing piece as we've been looking at like what's needed. We've been thinking about creating this kind of storytellers guild that could bring together both the kind of archetypal characters that are leading systems change, but also the people that can tell their stories. So media partners, people like Stephen with technologies, the whole technology stack that can go into what is it to spread stories, to create a story engine. This concept we've been talking about of double bouncing memes. When we see something as a meme that's got legs, we should actually be organized in the same way as the propaganda forces, the negative forces that are all around us, have the same concepts of like they see something that works and they spread it. We need to be doing the same for the good news, for things that are actually like for our flourishing, for in the interest of a thriving civilization and harmony of all life. And so we've been thinking about this notion of bouncing memes where when we can see something like the golden decade resonates, how do we have the systems in place where that can be spread further? And how can we design things like spectacles that will bring more people into the awareness of this new narrative, that there is actually a team of people doing wholesale systems design, not tweaking the current system, but really looking at in the micro, how can we redesign and reimagine, rethink the macro? So thank you so much, Roxy. And this is a perfect tee up, Nico, for you with all of the amazing work you've been doing in the trenches of the commons. Earlier in the food, in the food synthesis, we had a lot of talk of the commons here, and we see, the best way to summarize what the game is about is community solutions for the Planetary Commons. Now, what is the Planetary Commons, other than a tragedy currently? Nico, I'd love for you to introduce that, and then we can talk about next steps of engaging people in this process of greater defining the commons outside of the great work Creative Commons has already done.
Amazing. Thank you, Lucien. I'm going to post a link there with the text that we shared last week. I'm not going to repeat that one. If you're interested to know a bit more about the concept of the commons, there's a good summary there that we took from many other sources and people who have been thinking about it. I'm going to go back, though, to the first thing I said here last week, which is that we walk on the shoulders of giants. And I'm going to start sharing a story just for you to understand the power of like shared knowledge. Almost a decade ago, I wrote and directed a fiction feature film about the space race. And I really love this idea of the commons, of sharing and opening up a bit like the creative work so everybody can just benefit from it. So we decided to not only license our film under Creative Commons, which allowed people to distribute it and share it and exhibit it, but also to remix it. And with that, we also uploaded to archive.org about 140 hours of raw footage that we shot for the film. That was 140 hours of professionally shot with big budget movie images that like no other film has ever done in history. And the ripples of this, of opening up the film for collaboration, were outstanding. And they went from people writing poetry books inspired by the story, writing songs. We had this amazing music label that reached out to us, and they asked every musician in their music label to create a song inspired by the movie. And they created an album. But not only that, because those works also needed to be under Creative Commons licenses, we ended up using all these songs that have been created inspired by our work to use them as the soundtrack for many of the short films that we created around the film. So ultimately, there was like hundreds of new works that stem out of these first creative work that we did. And that up to today, there's still like film students that download this material and use them for mixing it. There's music clips created with this footage. It was absolutely amazing. And it's just one beautiful example of what you can create when we put our knowledge and our resources into the commons and we share them so we have access to them. So leading to this, the discussion that we've been having in the past weeks have been around how can we amplify this concept? How can we bring it more into the world? How can we get a little deeper into the work that has been done? And we made a first assumption that we're willing to test out with people who have been working on this for decades. So we're starting to reach out to them slowly, and that will crystallize in the first brainstorming that we want to do on the 27th of this month, inviting people from all these organizations, from Creative Commons to the P2P Foundation to the Schumann Foundation and all the others that have been doing outstanding work. So I'm gonna read the summary that is also on that link that I sent you. It's just a one-pager of what we're planning and willing to do. So assumption, Creative Commons has done an outstanding job at bringing up into the world the concept of shared knowledge and has managed to put into the world more than 1.2 billion works with licenses more open than copyright. To that, it sums all the previous works under the public domain. Other initiatives had tried to bring up the importance of the commons in the physical space as well. But overall, none has achieved a desirable level of general knowledge about the commons or managed to implement tools that allow for a comprehensive search of works, objects, life, or land that belongs to the commons. Our assumption is that the time is ripe for a more comprehensive license that can include all other initiatives and that can, 1, expand the search capacities of things like CC Search or archive.org to include more works, better digital tagging and tracing tools, interconnection with platforms to automatically look for potential new works and integrate them seamlessly, and a whole other set of new ideas already thought of by previous players. 2, to promote more licensing of works in different disciplines. 3, expand these licenses to include physical property and life, redefining how we interact with our planet moving forward. 4, expand the general notion of the commons from something that addresses creative work and sometimes land management to a broader focus on community interaction, policy making, and our interrelation as a species with everything around us. And 5, and also to serve as a brand umbrella that can expand the capacities of all other initiatives working to promote the commons and amplify the reach of these ideas to an even broader audience. We like the idea of calling this for now the Planetary Commons license. So this is our first assumption. This document that I shared is open, so feel free to edit, add, comment. We're gonna be working around it. We're gonna be calling you to participate in this first brainstorming in which we're gonna be inviting some of the key players, and hopefully from there we'll be able to either prove or disprove our assumptions and move to a next phase where we plan to try to implement some of these ideas through several hackathons.
Nico, thank you so much. And yeah, just to share this vision, you know, the Creative Commons is this great layer in the stack. But if we think about 2030 having an interoperable commons stack, collectively called the Planetary Commons, that could include things like a healing commons. For example, like we were just having a conversation over dinner here at Savannah House last night about, wouldn't it be great if we actually understood and could systematize the way we could bring people through an experience to heal their trauma, to integrate their trauma in a commons, like a wellness, health, healing commons. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a reimagined education system in the commons, have food system distribution networks in the commons, and that your participation in the commons is rewarded according to your contribution to the commons, and have those systems in place that could be interoperable, and multiple companies could go and say, we're going to be contributing this particular technology into the commons, or this particular solution into the commons, or this physical infrastructure into the commons. So there's a huge piece here that feels like a kind of back to the future moment, because it's, in some sense, it's like returning to our original, like the way we've organized ourselves as a civilization for like the 200,000 years we've been evolving, the commons has been at the heart of that. And we've had a systematic breakdown of the commons really since the Industrial Revolution. And it's created this kind of age of the individual. And so as we return to community, a big piece of this is rethinking our relationship to the commons. So Nico, thank you so much. And we're really excited to try and do our piece to really bring people that have been doing great work here together and ask what's needed, you know, what's missing in this ecosystem, because it feels like we're just at the tip of the iceberg of the possibility of a new kind of access economy that the Commons is going to play a major role in. So thank you for that. Let's see, Julian, are you with us, or we'll go to, I'm just going to...
Yeah, hi, Lucian. I'm right here. I don't know if my connection is going to be strong enough. Can you guys hear me okay?
Welcome to your new place, Julian.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful for all of you to keep going strong this week. I had to take a breather and travel to Canada. Check this out. Everyone, so good to see you again. These are the new views to inspire. And I wanted to today just with you guys share a drawing I made that kind of is supposed to make sense of what we were talking about in a tree of life kind of structural way. So Lucian, you've seen it, and let me know if that can be at all be read and seen. Basically, if the tree as a trunk is Unified Planet as an organization, the idea that came through another week was that each of the branches is one of the main kind of branches of our creation as a collective. And so one could be like sound as medicine, we know that's a branch. Narrative and the narrative guilds, the commons, as Nico was just saying, right? And so the idea of this tree is to visualize how, as a, yeah, Lucian, help me if you have better words for it, but like as a legal system, we would be able to receive maybe funds through the unified identity or entity of the planet, sorry, the trunk, the tree, and then each branch has micro projects that are already rolling. So if I look at narrative, for example, and you guys know Green Planet, Blue Planet as a podcast, would then split up in narrative. This is kind of an old school pyramid triangle for content. The narrative detail would be that, at the top, we create motion pictures or movies. We heard earlier, we have lots of producers on this call, TV shows, docuseries. And at the very bottom, to just keep the conversation going, that would be the integration of existing projects like a podcast, like the storytelling I do with Green Planet, Blue Planet about the regenerative leaders in that sense. And so really, I know this is a drawing with a red pen on an orange book, so it's maybe hard to see, but the idea is to just visualize, and maybe one of the artists would feel inspired to take it to the next level, because there's quite a bit of detail in it too, like where the trees then grow branches, and each of our branches grows fruits. Metaphorically, the fruits then will pollinate, right? And so the pollination is the next level of ideas we can't even yet imagine. That's like 2030 and beyond, but we're really building this tree and those branches really strong in the next decade. Does that make sense as an introduction? I think I don't really have a lot more to share right now. I'm definitely in the middle of moving, feeling so good, so grateful to be here.
Well, Julian, it makes so much sense, and I can say a word on the structure as we're thinking about Unified Planet being essentially a fractal of what we're looking to create. But maybe if you could introduce your work with Green Planet, Blue Planet, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course. So for those of you who don't know, I have created a podcast, started about 2 years ago, 210 episodes out there right now, rolling about 2 to 3 every week. And I portray leaders on purpose, to steal Tatiana's branding name there. But really, we're all just so matching in this constellation here. I've been mapping out the regenerative leaders in the world, people that, you know, either have the mind and the heart set of coherence and walk the walk of life in this way, or entrepreneurs that really come from this purpose-first kind of philanthropic creation spectrum. And I also included artists and authors because I think there's a lot we can learn from the more creative realms. And so, yeah, that's my show. That's Green Planet, Blue Planet. And I stream videos on Facebook, and the audios are on Spotify, iTunes, all the regular podcast apps. And so I'll drop a link in the chat. It's called Green Planet, Blue Planet, as a metaphor for really the planet we're creating, because we want it to be healthy in that sense again, right?
Yeah. And maybe when we close, Julian, if you could take us through a breath, that would be amazing, in 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Julian. How many people have you interviewed, Julian?
210. So like the body of work is growing, and it's a lot of fun. Like honestly, like for me, it's just a big journey of curiosity, because meeting these 210 people, like, you know, it just reaffirms my understanding and trust that this is all happening. There's thousands of us out there all over the world. And it's like, yeah, we're finding each other. And Stephen Brooks said earlier, who was one of those 210 people, like, we're much better organized than back in the 60s and 70s. So I think we can really make this maturity step as a species to, you know, organize in the ways we need to at this time.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. So thank you, Julian, for the work. And if people on this, like Rachel, please ping Julian. You guys need to be on an interview. Bobby, welcome. If you haven't interviewed with Julian yet, what we're looking to do is have a way where Unified Planet and Green Planet, Blue Planet, you know, we're part of the same family. And so telling the story of these incredible people dedicating their lives to this systems change moment is a key part of this. I'm going to say a quick word about structure with what Julian presented from the tree. So right now, Savannah is a foundation, a 501c3 in the US. We've yet to raise external capital. We're just beginning that now. One of, you know, Savannah's a 2-year-old organization. We have we've focused our first 2 years on creating open source digital tools. We put together over 20 different tools in a kind of seed fractal for community and collaboration. And then we took on Savannah House, which we're in right now in San Francisco, on top of the well of the Ohlone people. Hold on 1 second, I'm gonna mute. Oh, there we go, it's okay. And it's the house that was built by William Filmer, who was the president of the Golden Gate Bridge. And so we've been gathering people together. We've been here just under a year, since August. Been gathering now 3,000 people from over 1,000 organizations around systems change. David, it's so good to see you. I'd love for you to say a word in a moment. So that's Savannah. Savannah's been essentially like doularing the Unified Planet into the Planetary Commons. So we have no equity in Unified Planet. It's its own entity. We're sort of birthing it. And our goal here right now, our thinking is that the best structure for the Unified Planet is a Swiss co-op. Number of reasons for that I won't get into now, but other than saying our thinking here is that we can create a fractal ownership structure where everybody that's playing the game could be a shareholder in the game, like essentially a planetary stakeholder ecosystem. And so we need resources to set that up and to then support the all of the amazing projects and organizations and movements that are being spotlighted by Unified Planet. And so we're looking at new kind of funding structures. Bobby, you're here. I'd love to chat with you about that. There's one of the things we've been thinking about is, could we work with or even potentially become a donor advised fund that could give people the ability to go and say, I'm interested in investing in food. Here's a whole selection of food community solutions that could be funded, and creating essentially an ecosystem that is a commonwealth engine, that the more capital comes in, the more value gets created, and it creates like a flywheel for the commons. So a lot there, and if anybody has people, funders that could be helpful in our thinking about structuring this, it's essentially like a new form of a network of networks to identify these bright lights of social change. So would love now, I know Jonah, you're here. David, would you mind saying a word, just introducing yourself and saying a word on blueprints?
Did not expect that. Hey,
you never know what's gonna.
Illusion. Well, I'm just gonna shoot from the hip here. So, like many of yourselves, I kind of felt this impelling pull. I think it was about 10 years ago, somehow on the back of a long search for meaning for many years. And, you know, for a long part of that journey, you kind of think you're building this all alone, but you're not. You know, so many of us have come to the same conclusion somewhat independently. And I do think that the timing essentially for that is a collaborative model such as the one Lucian is suggesting. And I've tried to crack that nut for a while, by the way. So Blueprints, what does Blueprints do? Really, we are economic justice, and we stand on behalf of indigenous people for them to have an equitable share of their own inheritance. They pretty much, in many ways, are kind of like the big boys at the table, but their voice isn't united. They represent 80% of the world's biodiversity, 30% of its land, 25% of its, 25% of its land, 30% of its natural resources. Why is that significant? Basically, these are the people that believe in the values, the pillars of civilization that you're talking about. And these are the ones, essentially, you're looking at an ancient modern model, essentially a return to, as Julian calls it, this clarion call to a more abundant civilization. And those have been done in the past. They really have, if you trace through our history. What we're able to do now, perhaps, is just communicate better on a global level. But in terms of principles, in terms of you know, the pillars of civilization itself, I think there's a lot of that we can draw from our history. And anyway, so saying all of that, and just I just want to send a huge word of encouragement to you all, because this for ourselves has been quite an isolating time. It's been quite a difficult time. And this sense of community here, if you can find a way to do this, then I'm in. I push my chips in. I'm in.
So appreciate you. Yeah, that's what we're working on. You know, we talk about this being already World War III, and it's a war on trust right now. And so we need these oases of trust and truth. And so how we create that is a continued, you know, it's a continued experiment and a commitment to that North Star. So there's so much great work happening here, and you know, it's a total honor and privilege to spend, you know, sometimes 8 hours a day speaking to 60 people about systems change and like what they're seeing come down the pipe. And just as Julian said with his interviewing 210 people, you know, it fills me with confidence that we've already done this, that we know how this story ends, because it's just a better story. And ultimately, when we're in a competition of narrative, how we break free of this crazy cycle of left and right, of othering everywhere, and the cult of the individual and being drunk on consumerism, how we break out from that is the ancient future. We have to shift the axis, and we have to go from left and right, win-lose, to ancient future, connecting to our history, connecting to our indigenous communities, empowering leadership from our indigenous communities so that we can go and chart a thriving future. I've been fortunate enough, I've been to Davos the last 12 years, and the one thing I noticed from attending probably 100+ World Economic Forum events is the system we have, the house of cards we have, is designed that way. It's designed to create this kind of pyramid model. It's a planetary pyramid scheme, and don't expect the people at the top to pull the bottom out because they've got the longest to fall. And so when you recognize that this wholesale systems change essential, I started to realize that we can't look to existing global leadership to be designing completely new models, because they're actually incentivized to tweak. It's like Steve Jobs' innovator's dilemma from Clay Christensen. They're actually incentivized to adapt the current system to the challenges, not redesign it to meet the challenges. And so what we end up doing is tweaking what we have. And so if you imagine a kind of planetary compass, where we need to go is north and where we're going is south. Most of what's coming out of the mainstream existing kind of global leadership of nation states and etc. takes us frankly to south-southwest. And that's not good enough. And so what we've realized with the game is, like, we need to look in the mirror with this, and we need to recognize that it's going to take collective intelligence. It's going to take a lot of people, but to feel empowered in that way is essential. So we're going to go a few minutes over. I would love to, if you're here, let me just check. Jonah, I'd love for you to, we haven't yet spoken, Jonah, and I watched your video, and I would so love you to introduce yourself here.
Oh, thank you, Lucian. Yeah, I'm here.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see everyone here. Big aloha to everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so honored to be here in this here and now, in this space and time. I feel, just resonance with everything that's been being spoken here, all the projects, every bit of what's happening, and the synchronicity of it all, really brings about a notion of hope, and I'm actually here on the island of Maui, and there's, on a local level, so much that is happening here on a local level that is reaching out and broadcasting into the global ecoscape. And speaking of ecoscape, the intention of literally where I'm at right now is a church, and seeing this ecosystem of sovereign entities that are forming, and that's what we're seeing right now. Even as you were just sharing, Lucian, of your 501c3, and that we have these entities that can form and be organizations representing the people, and by the people, for the people. And so one of the main thing that I've been working on since 2014, after my experience, I went through a huge transformational awakening experience at Burning Man in 2014, and in that time, it become very clear to look at how to strategically organize all of the change makers and visionaries and people out there that are currently active and involved and engaged. And how do we do that? How do we organize? How do we come together so that all of these movements are banded as one? And with that blossomed and flowered this Jedi Academy and this Jedi Alliance. And so looking at at this, I call it JAJA. And so you have as an acronym. So the Jedi Alliance would be essentially that ecosystem of all these alliances that are coming together for the innovation and the ancient future, as you put it, right, is this ancient future where we're bringing forth all of the modern, most innovative technologies that are out there in the world, that is grounded in our history, grounded in our indigenous cultures and traditions that have always been around the honoring of our Mother Earth, you know, and around the protection of our natural resources. And so I have the kind of the template that I've been working with in this Jedi Mastermind game. I'm going to switch it around here. And in this template right here, the Jedi Mastermind game, I've been stewarding daily talk shows Monday through Friday. And we break it down into the guilds. And so in our values, we're sitting in those elements that make up the earth. And our focal point in the center is that of Mother Earth. And so our corners, or our pillars, you know, are the fire keepers, which would be the guilds that we spoke of. So we have a fire keepers guild, which is also the pillar of fire, and which is holding an agreement field of the 4 agreements. And then in our air purifier guild, which is also holding the pillar of air, which is the Aloha spirit law. And then our Earth Guardian guild, in that pillar, are what I call the rocks, the rites of conduction, which are actually these symbols, which are the symbols for all of the principles of Burning Man. And then our water protectors guild and pillar is Ho'oponopono. So working with that. And in each one of those guilds, then coming into this wheel of co-creation right here via Barbara Marks Hubbard's channel and her team that came through, is to utilize that to strategically blossom in, okay, well, in our Firekeepers Guild, we're going to bring in and speak upon art, spirituality, and education. And so we form a coalition and strategically move in that energy. So that's what's being conducted over here. In the air purifiers, we're working with economics, infrastructure, and science. And then in the Earth Guardians Guild, we're working with and presenting upon governance, environment, and health. And in the Water Protectors Guild, we're speaking upon and presenting on justice, relations, and media. And then we have basically a full circle round table Jedi Council that comes together, where basically our fire keepers, air purifiers, Earth Guardians, and water protectors all come together and have a incubation conversation to bring forth what is our latest innovation here and now that is going to serve us as humanity and the planet as a whole system. So this Jedi Mastermind game, you know, Mondays I work with the fire keepers and facilitate and host that. On Tuesdays, the air purifiers come in. Wednesdays, Earth Guardians. Thursdays, the water protectors. And then the whole council we choose into a day, which I would love to have come into, where we're doing this on a live streaming experience, so that we have full transparency as to what's opening up, what we are experiencing in the field, and gathering information, and how we can broadcast that out there. So we're disseminating that knowledge, that ancient future wisdom, as an open source educational experience, to bring forth the latest and greatest of what we have to offer.
Thank you, Jonah. Just couldn't have presented this better. I watched your I watched the video you shared with me, and this is I just love the systemic approach with which you've thought about all these different pieces. In fact, one of the games we've been running is called the Unanimous Quest. We launched it a week ago on Friday, which is the 75th anniversary of the signing of the UN Charter. It's more the video. It was the UN Charter is, you know, one of the most important documents of certainly the existence of modern society. And it was signed here in San Francisco with 51 people together. And the amazing thing is like most people didn't know about this. And it's crazy that a city like San Francisco wasn't aware. We actually had the editor of the San Francisco Chronicle come for dinner. And I was like, were you aware of this? Like, did you cover any stories about like this important date in San Francisco's history? Like, we birthed the UN here. Wasn't aware that, you know, and was like, this is a really good story for the city. And so what we did on that day, on Friday, is we announced the unanimous quest, which isn't, it's like a living journey, if you like, that we've been saying is a journey of at least 7 generations. But it's to look at how can we go from a human-centric worldview that the UN was created out of to a planetary-centric worldview. And one of the key pillars of the unanimous quest that we started with is by honoring the 4 elements. So very similar approach to what you've done with fire, air, earth, and water. We honor those as sacred, and the idea here is that we want to be able to move towards being able to give rivers, oceans, forests, etc., legal representation, just like a corporation has legal representation. And so then the 5th element that we're bringing in is community and our relationship to ourselves all the way up to the cosmos. And so this is a really interesting piece of work that I think is going to be like foundational to any Unified Planet Charter and manifesto and things like that come. And dear brother Ram is leading that work. So it's worth checking out what's going on there. It's New Earth Manifesto and Unanimous Charter, because the goal here is to really ask, what can we as a planet, not just human life, but what can all life be unanimous over? And obviously things like polluting the air, water, etc. is just like, we have to evolve beyond that. We have to go through this planetary metamorphosis of our relationship to our external world and recognize that we are nature and we have a role to play in the transition of that. So Jonah, thank you so much. Let's just, anyone, Shant, I saw you raise your hand, please do jump in, and then anyone else want to do any comments? We can run over. If anyone needs to go, please, thank you for being here.
Lucian, may I share?
To stay on, we'll do some breaths to close.
May I share one thing just to come back with a brief response to what you had shared there?
Sure.
I'm also in communication with Ramayan as well, and I saw the New Earth Manifesto coming in, and I knew there was so much resonance with our work. And you know, looking at this, that's essentially what I've been seeing, and the intention of even bringing all of this together. And the intention is the uniting of all nations for 7 generations, and that being at the core, so that everything that is being innovated through this ecosystem of the wheel of co-creation that comes through, that be in our perspective, in the vision, in what the intention is of what is being innovated, what is being co-created, that we are seeing it as being long-lasting, sustainable for the next 7 generations. And, you know, looking at it, that's even a template coming back to Burning Man, that's one of the main intentions of their Fly Ranch and the community coming from that 1-week experience that brings about an international diverse representation of the world to be in a space of innovating and celebrating together, you know, as one family, as welcome home, you know. And so, you know, we're literally embarking upon that charter agreement right now, is literally indoctrinating these 12 principles, 11 of which of Burning Man, and adding in consent as the 11th principle, the amendment of decommodification to regeneration, and then adding in the each one teach one principle from Africa Burns theme, and to bring it back to our motherland. And so this is what, you know, and so we're establishing this charter right now with Lightning, who's the legal liaison for burningman.org, to bring these principles as a charter, and then working with the Treaty of Water. So in the same way of the, you know, water law, world water law that we're currently bringing in right now, is that water being our connector, you know, are energetics, that living on like the shoulders of giants, that water is this giant connector of us all, and that literally we are a reflection of the world, and 70% of it is water, you know, so that brings 70% into, at bare minimum, into us as being a unified planet, you know. So I love that the blue earth, green earth, all together, this is one earth unifying us all.
I'm so happy you're here, Jonah, and so happy you're doing this work. I love nothing more. What fills my heart when I meet like fellow band members for life. It's just like I'm like got a new ancient friend from the future here.
Indeed, we all are.
Yeah.
We all are. And I'm gonna put in my the link to the website in here as well. So any of you in this space, and Lucian, we definitely should chat to scale and expand out the mastermind games, you know, like Julian with the 204. We're going for 12 weeks. I'm going to reconvene on Monday. I had put the game on pause for a little while because we were moving and had the World Unity Week and so on and so forth that was going on. And so we're going to reconvene on Monday. But at the end of the 12 weeks, we'll have 144 who are in that space of coherency, you know, through this gameplay. And so that's where we come in, because we recognize that this 144 of us, we represent tribes, we represent organizations, we represent a whole lot more than obviously something much larger than ourselves in that. And so that goes out into a megahertz frequency. And that'll be the first cohort. And then we'll repeat this cycle, and I'm going to do it with the season. So we're doing that, basically having the meta, and then we go into a physical academy after that with that 144. And then we do a meta, and then we do a physical academy, and then we do a meta. And so we continually do that as we onboard people all into this field constantly. Complete.
Amazing work, Jonah. Let's chat next week. I will follow up on WhatsApp. So, Peter, do you want to say a word about the seal and the 144 and Council of 12? I think it's a good we can see how really we are playing music together. You're muted, Peter, I think. We can't hear you, your audio's. Yeah, your audio, maybe you might need to go out and come back in. Does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts before we
I would love Nika to introduce herself. Hi, Nika.
Hey, Nika.
And your work.
Hi, guys. That's an
Golden Bridging, all the way. Nice to meet you, Nika.
Nice to meet you too. Do you want to know about my project, you said, or?
Yeah, would love that, Nika. Thank you.
Okay, so we're basically creating, we are a 501c3 organization, first of all, and I don't know if you heard about our project. It's called The Home, and we're creating a network of organic, regenerative, actually, farms and permaculture gardens to serve as healing and educational spaces for basically anyone in need, but mostly we will be focusing on homeless populations, homeless, refugees, and people would come. I actually have a little drawing somewhere just to show you. I don't know if, yes, it's here. It's in very early stages, but when you said about fractals, I actually was pretty much excited because I started to working on the structure of the first kind of farm where people can come and not only just stay in the structures that we will build on this farm, but somehow create such a concept so people who came there can go through the healing because of the, I will just show you, better to show. So imagine, so it's kind of fractal. I don't know, it's like a very first draft, don't laugh at me, but it's like, imagine all these things. It's a little constructions where people will be living. I don't know if you know about Call Earth Institute. So yeah, I see you know this. They're doing beautiful, beautiful constructions from basically earth materials. So in the middle, it could be geodesic dome as a greenhouse, and then constructions. And then each construction would have their restroom and the toilet in the form of fractal as well. So when people come to the farm, they would stay in a small, and this is all crops, right? So you come at the first house with a small amount of land here, then you move in 2 weeks to the bigger land, maybe different crop, and then you move until you're ready to leave the farm. You kind of reconnected with the nature, you reconnected with community, you're healed, and you move for 3 months, and then you're ready to go outside, go to the world, like completely renewed and happy. And you can enjoy your life. But idea is to offer to these people, not just take any jobs, like whatever, just earn some money. No, we want to create a network that will be offering their kind of sustainability opportunities, like only sustainable organizations sharing their jobs for people who actually like really to step out of this consumerism, this capitalism world and just do something else. So that's, I tried to say it briefly, hope it didn't take much time.
Perfect, Nika, perfect. Check out Alegria, because it looks actually, I was just there.
Yeah, I know, we just had a whole thing with Steven, we know each other for like years.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Love it, love it. Band is back together.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you for your work in fashion as well.
Oh, Natalia, I subscribed on you.
I know. It's about time. Everything is about time. It's coming together.
Thanks for sharing all what you shared. It's like all my thoughts
I know.
From my brain and just.
I know. That's what we're doing here. Thank you, Nika. I love your vibes.
Thank you. And then also, by the way, I don't know if you know Nicole, for instance. She just joined. Nicole Franco. She's kind of inspiration of like a network called Mycelium Network. And if you want to introduce yourself and the network, is a beautiful group of people.
Yes.
Nicole, if you wanna share about that, and Peter's gonna go next and just close up with Lucille, and then Julian, if you're available, Julian, just to close us with a breath. We're running a little over.
I just love being able to tune in with all of you and see familiar faces and see my brother Jonah, who I spent time with on Maui, and his family and his little girl presenting, and Nika like send me a message just quickly, just join with no description, and I had this level of trust. And she's like, you want to be here? Like, okay. So it's just like in like this deep love space to get to see like something that Jonah's been working on and sharing about. And I'm in a time with this resiliency hub here where we can actually implement a model like that as well, and really feel a strong desire for us to unite in this kind of way. So it's an honor to be here with all of you.
That's such a delight to have you here, Nicole. Thank you. Peter, do you want to? Serena's here as well. If I don't know, Serena, you want to say a word on your experience? Serena is a Unified Planet graduate. Serena's been the Sherpa of the Sound Portal Guild, and has been an amazing ally all the way through. And delighted you're here, Serena. Thank you. And Andrea's here as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to go on video because I am not dressed. I am having a lazy day.
That is not an excuse.
But I am just actually really happy that I got the opportunity to join and hear the food and the community, a little bit of the end of the food and the community gathering of this game, because I am now able to see this stackable vision and the drawing that, I forget the gentleman who shared it. Yeah, that drawing reminded me of what Andrea drew in the Sound Portal Guild as kind of this other draft of it. And so what I'm loving is the synchronicity of what people are doing and how it's all coming together. And I'm just really excited to be a part of it. And I want to say that from an Eastern medicinal perspective, the fact that there's so much talk about the elements, and I truly believe what corporations and consumerism does is it attaches demons to our five senses, and it is in fact the elements that can actually purify our five senses and get us back to reality of remembering our actual ancient selves. So seeing this, seeing all of the different ways and fractals of how elements are being brought up in this game just furthers my inspiration and passion. So thank you guys all for contributing, and I'm excited to see the next phase of it in 2 weeks as well.
Thank you, Serena. Thank you so much. Delighted to have you here. Thank you for being part of this. You've been amazing.
Yeah, and one last thing, I wanted to wish everyone a happy lunar eclipse and full moon. That's this weekend. We are under some very potent energy. It's just such a great time to go earthing and dip in the ocean and just do all the things that are about love for yourself. So just sending everyone just waves of that energy for yourselves this weekend.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Serena. It's gonna be amazing. There's some big news coming out tomorrow. I think that in our ecosystem that I won't spill, but yeah, it's some amazing things going on everywhere.
I'm excited.
Everywhere. Yeah. Peter, do you want to just do? I think just connecting what Jonah has been doing with Lucille would be really cool.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Great. So yeah, I do think you are the game show host from the ancient future. If no one's told you that before, I'm sure people have. It's a delight to be here. I'm one of 9 co-founders of Lucille Foundation. We're based in the UK, and Jay, Chris, we met. Nice to see you when we were in San Francisco. Jonah, I loved what you were saying. We get a great deal of comfort knowing that organizations like Sivana are out there. It's like what David Solomon was saying. A lot of people are out there thinking they're alone, and we're not. There's a lot of us. And to hear stories like yours, Jonah, and to see the numbers 12 come up and 144 is super interesting. We've accomplished over the last 3 or 4 years a few different missions. The first one was to go find 12 particular elders from around the world, from different indigenous communities, which is why I want to talk to you, David, in the future, very soon. We searched the world for a year. They breadcrumbed our way to them. And the result of that can be seen in a film called The 12, which can be seen for free. Jonah, what you're talking about this gathering of 144 people, we're also doing that kind of thing, or we're guided to, right? Where everything we do is done through guidance. Well, we similarly to what Lucy and you were doing is gathering people, in this case, 12 people around 12 different topics. All the 17 SDGs are included in those, but it's water, agriculture and permaculture, financial systems, etc. So that what I'm figuring out, Lucian, listening, and thank you for the invitation to take part, is how do we continue to share this thinking and become as efficient as possible as a community? So if anyone's running into cul-de-sacs, we can flag that and say, look, we tried that, that's not going to work. Or maybe it didn't work because of this. And if things are working, if we can share those. So the conversations about the Planetary Commons and the Creative Commons, all this we resonate with completely. Julian, we were talking about these things a couple of years ago, I think. So I'm hugely encouraged, even though we're in World War III and all the rest of it, Lucien, and we're delighted to be part of the community. And I'm representing the Ciel and our ecosystem. It's certainly not just me. So you'll see more of us.
Beautiful. And David, I'm surprised you guys don't know each other yet. David and Peter, you're both in London.
Yeah, I've met a few members of La Ciel, actually, and Peter, I think we've been introduced by email a few times and everything. Lucien, I just want to say one thing here. As a commitment, I'm willing to put some of my equity in Blueprints in towards this, and I'll say that as a public thing here, and that's really kind of pushing some chips in, you know. At the same time, there is a mathematical argument to what you're talking about. I mean, it's based in fundamental statistics. Beyond a sample population of 100 projects that appear selected, it delivers an average annual return of 27.3%. That cracks any financial model. So there is a financial, mathematical, and statistical argument to this cross-collaborative model that you're discussing, very fractal in its nature. But anyway, just happy to be here and happy to break down the silos as well, not knowing how to do it. I have to say, I've really tried to do it for about 7-8 years, and maybe I'm just not the guy to do it. Maybe you are, I hope so.
No,
you know?
There's no guy to do this. It's
yeah.
That's the thing. It's like
Definitely not a guy, I think, still, but you know, cool.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you for putting your chips in the ring on the game board. I really appreciate that. And you know, we're with a co-op. One of the things that can happen is companies that want to be part of the co-op we're looking to design it in such a way that they could bring their equity in for exchange for this. We're introducing a concept called stars, which people earn through playing the game. And one of our aims of this is an idea stage. It needs to get executed into technology and into the platform. But our vision here is that companies like Blueprints could use their equity in exchange for stars, and then people can essentially like earn seed equity in organizations for their contribution to their missions. And so it's almost like a sort of an open source co-op in some sense, is how we're thinking about it. But we need to run a game on that. We need to design it. We need to design a currency which isn't like a cryptocurrency as such. It's more like a digital currency, in-game incentives, where our vision here is that 1 star equals $1. It's like exchangeable, but the only way you can exchange stars into dollars is when those projects see fruition. So it becomes like essentially a model for co-creation, and investors can fund projects in advance, and give people essentially like runway to be working on the commons to such a point that we can go and demonstrate that cooperative advantage outperforms competitive advantage, that collective intelligence outperforms competitive intelligence, and so we're looking for those. We need partners. We need people to experiment with. We recognize that this is a nut to crack, but we also recognize that this is an essential thing to happen for us to move into essentially a new economic system that isn't just an economic system, but it's a new holistic system for how do we organize ourselves. And so it's good. It's really an open invitation for us to co-create this and find those really passionate that recognize that it's going to take a band, and just so grateful for everyone. I wonder, Andrea, if you want to say a word. We're gonna wrap up and just do a closing breath with Julian. If anyone else wants to say a word, I just want to make sure everyone feels welcome.
This is Andrea. I'm seeing all the nodes that are all coming together, and it's almost like when we look at Elon Musk, he's putting all the satellites outside of the Earth, but it's probably to look down to see how many different spaces that are available to be connected right now, but also in alliance. and also in creation of the Creative Commons, of the Planetary Commons going forward. So it's like all these different projects are in coherence coming into the future, but the future is also now.
Exactly.
So it's just absolutely beautiful to listen to this.
Yeah, thank you. And Andrea has been one of our most active game players. She's participated in every sound meeting from the beginning, and is the steward of the Sound Alliance, and is just doing amazing work there. We haven't even touched on the magic that's been coming out of the sound game here. So we'll connect next week, Andrea and Julian. Anyone else before we go? Just do a closing breath together.
I have something real quick.
Chris.
Hello, everyone. 244 years ago today was the in-between day of the agreement of the Declaration of Independence. That was ratified on July 2nd. But it wasn't signed until the 4th. And so this is this unique kind of energy field in between coming up with something and then putting your sacred honor, your life on the line, where you were committing treason. You were going to be strung and quartered, hung and quartered. That's the risk that people were taking. And while I have so many, how shall I say it, reasons to always improve and make a more perfect union from where it started, I want to honor the what took place 244 years ago today. Think about what that was like. You know, that's exactly what it's like today. And I love you all, and just what a joy. What a joy. Thank you.
I'm so happy you brought that in, Chris. I did actually, that was one of the things I knew it was on the 2nd, and actually it was a year later that the first woman signed the Declaration. Obviously those were different times, and thank goodness for that. But you know, honor the great, you know, I think it's been said maybe 10 times over the last 2.5 hours, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and to recognize the sacrifices that the founding fathers made, and to recognize also that what they did was like the first wave of a new kind of system design, and we're now riding a new wave. And to recognize that these moments right now and what's unfolding right now are as important as those meetings that were happening with the founding fathers, because what's being created here goes beyond any nation state. Ultimately, it may even go beyond the planet. But to recognize that we are coming together, envisioning a new way of how we organize ourselves that's in harmony with all life is essential. And I love to close. I'm going to do it every time. There's a Unified Planet oath that I welcome you to share along with me. And it goes like this. It says, "We are the unified planet.
We are
the unified planet.
I am an Earth Guardian.
I
am an Earth Guardian.
On my honor.
On
my honor.
I commit.
I commit
to a thriving civilization.
To a thriving civilization.
In harmony with all life.
In harmony with all life.
That's the oath. Because what we felt is that we're really missing like honor, like commitments, honor as we step forward. We need these places, these circles of trust, where it's like we're here to serve. And you know, the thing I have deep trust in is the more we give, the more we shall receive. And so grateful for everybody showing up today, and for all the work you're doing in the world. And it's just such a deep honor to be hosting these spaces where I think we've probably had people speak from at least 15 countries today, which is cool. Yeah, Brazil, Colombia, Germany, UK, Canada, US. We're spread all over Hawaii, etc. So thank you. Julian, do you want to lead us in a closing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This was such a wonderful call. Thanks for inviting me in again. And I want to offer for all of you to take everything we said right now into our internal realm, our internal screen, and really anchor it into the ground. Like we are, as Lucian said, across multiple countries. So right now, in all the different locations we are across the country, send this back down. So if you want to sit with me and just like get your spine really nice and straight, you can also do that standing or laying down, however you prefer. Now let's just start breathing through our nose a few times, really nice and deep, filling our diaphragm, our lungs, and a little bit more air out into the crown. So here we go, breathing in, holding gently at the top, and then breathing out through the mouth. And a few more times. So breathing in through the nose, into the diaphragm, into the lungs, and a little more air up and into the crown. Breathing out gently through the mouth. Continue to breathe in your rhythm, lengthening the breath here to about 10 seconds an in-breath, 10 seconds each out-breath. Taking 2 more breaths like this, deeply into the diaphragm, the lungs, the crown, and long and steady breaths out. And then as you're returning to your regular breath pattern between 6 and 10 seconds, keep your eyes closed and visualize this ball of light in your heart and your chest and your upper and shoulder region. And we're making it bigger and smaller as we're breathing. Filling it with all the good projects around the world. The 144 Jedis that are tuned into transmissions like this across the world. And the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that are ready to be activated. And so while we're breathing, we'll send this ball of light down our spine, all the way through our solar plexus, through our sacral chakra, through our root chakra, out through the ground, below the feet, below the ground, wherever you're sitting, through the building you are, into the soil, through the earth's crust, traveling down, down below, all the way into the core of the earth, locking ourselves into this core of the earth. Breathing in deeply through the nose and allowing this energy to come back up to us. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in deeply through the nose. Breathing out. Two more breaths like this. Bring the energy all the way back up, out of your head, out of your crown, all the way up to the stars, through our atmosphere, past the Milky Way, into the central sun of our universe. Connecting us between heaven and earth, right here, right now, as one unified planet. And then we'll close our beautiful call and our transmission with our palms together at heart center. And if you're muted or not, you can just join me in 3 semi-silent ohms. We'll just be humming, pressing our lips together. So breathe in with me. And 3 times, let's find this silent om. Deep breath in again. Last one, deep breath into the diaphragm, into the lungs. Thank you. Stop now. Namaste.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, thank you. Always such a pleasure to have you here. Have a great holiday weekend for those in the US and celebrating what the Brits think of the Great Divorce. I invite you to think, as you think about what independence means to you, to also consider what interdependence means to you. My dear friend Benjamin Barber and dear mentor of mine created the Interdependence Day, along with the Global Parliament of Mayors. And so thinking about the duality of independence and interdependence. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great solar eclipse. Appreciate everybody's time so much.
Is it possible for someone to save the chat file and send
I
it to
got
me?
that. I'm on it. I'll send it to you on Facebook.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll send you an email now.
Have a great trip, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Bye, everyone. We love you so much.
Love you all. Love you all.
Thanks for showing up.
Spread
the message. Please help to spread what we're doing.
Awesome. Dream come true.
Invite people in.
Thanks, Stanley.
Thank you.
At your service.
Thank you.
Saving this chat.
You're the man, brother. Way to go. Love it. Love you, man.
So
awesome.
So good to see you, Stanley.
Awesome. Yeah. And,